It is not the turning of the calendar year that leads to newness. It's a reshaping of our heart and mind. A new year often leads us to reflect on the past year and to maybe plan to do things differently, to make some commitments towards being different, commitments towards newness. Now, often our commitments or our New Year's resolutions come out of the things we regret about the past year. Now, looking over this past year, I am filled with regrets. Regrets for all the things that I messed up. Regrets for all the things I could have done or I should have done to make life better for others. Regrets. We all have them, but we don't have to carry them with us. Igniter Media put a video together a while back that highlighted some of the regrets that people shared with them. Regrets that they were carrying. I regret getting into debt. I regret buying that car or that thing from that infomercial. I regret paying so much for so little. I regret thinking that more money is all I need. I regret telling my wife that I'd lose weight for her as a Valentine's Day gift. I regret believing this was finally the Cubs' year. I regret not spending time with my children, or with my lonely neighbor, or with my dad fishing. And now that chance is gone. I regret all the date nights with my wife that I never took. I regret fighting the same battles every day. I regret every minute I devoted to pornography. I regret that I foolishly tried to hide my sins from others. I regret my apathy towards worship. I regret listening to man's opinions and not to God's truth. I regret listening to Satan's lies about my self-worth. I regret consistently missing time with God, yet somehow never missing my show on TV. Now, you have regrets too. We all do. And the thing we're reminded about at this new year is that you're not confined to your past. You're not defined by those things, but it's not the turning of the calendar page that leads to true newness. It's a reshaping of our hearts and our minds, a renewal that goes right down into the core of who we are. And this is a gift of God for us. Paul in Romans chapter 12 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." Or as he says to the Colossians, "Since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God, and set your mind on things above, not on earthly things." Now, in my experience, the best way to get my mind right is to spend time with God in prayer. Reading the Bible is good and necessary for the Spirit to have something to work with, but it's not sufficient. Knowing the story of God's work in the world and his victory on our behalf is not enough if it doesn't shape the way we live or think or feel. And the biggest regret that I have over the past year is that I do not always make prayer a priority. I didn't always set aside the time I needed to have my mind shaped by God's priorities, by his calling, and by his desires, to set my mind on things above and not get distracted by all of the things that have to happen here on earth. So this year, I'm committing to spending about 5 to 10 minutes every morning here in the prayer room at Woody Nook Church. I'll pray for the things written here on the chalkboard. So if you're at church, I'd encourage you to write something down. It doesn't have to be elaborate or overly specific, as God knows what's on our hearts, but it does provide something for me and others who pray for the church to focus on. I want you to know that you are not alone in your struggles. God can and will restore you. Your regrets can become his burden, freeing you to live with peace and joy. And so if you're wrestling with the regrets or you're finding it difficult to walk towards freedom, find someone you trust who can help you focus on what God says about who you are and what he has in store for you. Because then, when you focus on things above, you will be transformed by the renewing of your mind.